Morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's Children Investment Fund Allocation Committee meeting. I'm City Commissioner and Allocation Chair Dan Saltzman. And for those in the audience and here at home watching us on cable, I'd like to introduce my colleagues on the Allocation Committee. To my far right is Alyssa Kinney-Geyer. To my immediate right is Adrienne Livingston. And to my left is Ron Beltz. Multnomah County Chair Ted Wheeler is unable to join us today. I'd also like to introduce the Children's Investment Fund staff, Program Director Lisa Pellegrino, who oversees the after-school and mentoring programs as we support, Assistant Director Meg McElroy, who oversees early childhood programs, Lisa Hansel, who oversees the child abuse prevention and intervention programs, as well as foster care when we award those grants this summer, Communications Director Mary Gay Broderick, and Fiscal Specialist John Kelly. Before we start, I'd like to just give some background on the Children's Investment Fund. The fund was created in 2002 through passage of the Children's Levy and was renewed by Portland voters last November for another 5 years. The investment fund annually reaches more than 16,000 Portland children and families through 66 programs in early childhood development, after school and mentoring, child abuse prevention and intervention, and as I said, beginning in July, helping children in foster care succeed. A 5% administrative cap means that 95% of the levy goes directly to proven programs that achieve positive results for children, while a leverage fund that partners public funds with private dollars has generated more than $6 million to date for Portland children. So let's begin the meeting by asking for approval of the minutes from our January 26th meeting. Entertain a motion?
I move we approve.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. And now we'll open the floor to the public comment. If anybody wishes to address us on any topic for 3 minutes, you'll have an opportunity further down the agenda too, but if there's anybody that wants to say anything right now. Seeing none, we will move on. First up on our agenda is a report highlighting the Children's Investment Fund audit, independent audit for fiscal year 2007-2008. As many of you know, the fund has been audited each year, and I'm happy to say that the auditors have always found administrative expenses to be under 5%, which is one of the ballot requirements. Presenting the findings is Jody Brassfield of the audit firm McDonald Jacobs. So Jody, why don't you come on up to the table? Welcome.
Hello.
Maybe you could pull the microphone a little.
Let's see.
I think-
Hello.
Those microphones too? Yeah.
These ones?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it is very nice to be here. I've been on the audit engagement with the Children's Investment Fund for 2 years now, and it's a great job to participate in, especially being a person that voted for the levy. It's very satisfying personally to see that the funds are in such excellent hands and that they are being managed effectively and appropriately, and that all of the ballot measure requirements are being met as far as we can tell. I think this is either our 5th or 6th year as a firm, McDonald Jacobs, for auditing the investment fund. And for the last several years, we haven't had any findings or any exceptions to report. And that continues this last year for the fiscal year ending June 30 of 2008. We had no findings. Everything was in order. And it was just, everything looked great. When we perform our audit, we're basically looking at two main pieces. We want to make sure that, in fact, the fund is spending less than or equal to the 5% administrative limit. And then we also want to take a look at the grant funding and do testing of the grants and make sure that all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And that is what we do. For the admin expenses, we select a sample and make sure that things are appropriate and approved as they are supposed to be, and we didn't find any exceptions in our sample. I believe, let's see, we tested about 71% of total administrative expenses other than payroll. We did some separate tests for the payroll expenditures where we looked directly at timesheets and made sure that those were being approved and put through the system correctly. We make sure that expenses tie out both in the fund's general ledger and in the city's general ledger as well. So just we take a good broad overview of those administrative expenditures, and everything looked great to us. You know, John keeps excellent records, and it's very easy to work with him and look through the files. I mean, it's all right there. And that's not always the case when I'm doing audits, so that's very pleasant. And the other piece, of course, is the grants themselves. This year we took a sample of about 15 grants and just went in detail through each of the files that the fund keeps on all of the grants that they do approve. And we look at just about all the paperwork in those files. We look at the grant awards, we look at the budgets, we look at the invoices as they're being paid out, and making sure that, you know, that I see your signature on things, and that the grants fall into the programs that are approved by the ballot measure. We make sure that the fundees are sending in the quarterly reports as they're supposed to be, you know, showing that they're meeting the expectations of the grant. We look at audited financial statements of the fundees as they are available. Sometimes when it's a newer organization, they may not have an audit yet, but we check for that there's been an audit within a 2-year time frame for the people who are being funded by the grants. And I think this year we tested about $2.3 million worth of grant funding, and everything was there. All the files were in good order. All the documents that we needed to see were there. All the signatures were in place. So things are being approved, and expenditures are being made in an appropriate fashion. We also did not have any findings as far as any internal control suggestions. Everything is up to par. So let's see. Do you guys have any questions for me as far as the audit? Or, like I said, it's just a...
So you're basically finding that the administrative expenses are indeed
they're
5%
under the 5%.
or less.
Yeah, they're under the 5%.
All the contracts, all the grants we've made are, from your sample anyway, look very good.
That's exactly right. And it's, like I said, it's just personally satisfying to me to be able to say that and work with these folks. It's very enjoyable. So, well done.
Great. That's good. Well, thanks, Jody. Any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we want to welcome the Sun Service Coordinating Council. The council was formed to coordinate service delivery among Sun system partners. Sun, by the way, is Schools Uniting Neighborhoods. Lisa Pellegrino, who sits on the council as the mayor's appointee, will introduce the panel and afterwards make a funding allocation recommendation for our consideration. Are you going to introduce them, Lisa? Or?
Actually, I'll let them introduce themselves, and I'll give the names, but I just kind of give a nice little summary. I just want to make sure that everybody in the audience, as well as the committee, remembers who the Sun Coordinating Council is, and how it came to be. This council was formed by Ted Wheeler, director of his organization, to try to coordinate all the partners who are operating in the Sun system. So that would be all people who provide services, the schools at which many of these services are taking place, the funders, as well as DHS, Department of Human Services from the state, who provide service to many of the kids who are also served in the system. So this group has been meeting regularly for close to 2 years now, and has tackled a number of tasks, one of which was coming up with allocation recommendations for how resources should be allocated within the system for similar types of services. And that's what this group is going to be coming here to talk to you today about how resources are allocated, particularly for the Sun schools, which is only one part of the Sun service system. There are other services in that system, but that's the one we're going to talk about today. And the council has already approved, probably about a year ago, approved an allocation method and wanted to come and bring it to you when you had active funding decisions to consider, which is now. And this group's going to talk to you about why they think you should, just also for members of the audience, a summary of those allocation recommendations is on the table over there, as well as it has been circulated to the committee, and I'm sure that so these are representatives of the movements themselves.
So before we get started, the microphones here, I'm a little confused. I think we need to move this day. Is the microphones on the wooden platform?
So, which one? Is this one working?
Those are the ones that are working.
This one is not. They're both working.
Well, they're
right?
both working, yeah. But
I don't need a microphone. Well, good morning. I'm Maxine Thompson with the Leaders Roundtable, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves when I pass the baton to them. A few of you may know me in conjunction with my role as staff to the Leaders Roundtable, which I am, which I still am, but I'm really here today in regards to the SUN Coordinating Council, which the Leaders Roundtable is a participant in, because we believe very strongly in what the SUN system represents. We've been working for over 25 years to promote an integrated system of service delivery for kids and families, especially school-age kids and families. I was here before you in December talking a little bit about just general concepts of alignment and encouraging that alignment, and I'm back today we have a little bit more of a specific request. As Lisa said, the council is a multi-jurisdictional body. It's comprised of high-level folks from the city of Portland, the mayor's office, Multnomah County, the Oregon Department of Human Services, the 6 school districts, Leaders Roundtable, and there's business folks as well as nonprofit agency partners that are involved. I want to also be clear that we're not here today asking for a particular funding decision, so we're not asking for any money, and we're not asking you to fund or not fund anything in particular. We're here talking about a particular methodology. Excuse me, it's the cold season. The council's role really is to provide governance, guidance, and support to the SUN service system, which is our shared system of care for school-age youth and their families. And when I say our shared system, we're really talking about those partners, the city, the county, DHS, the school districts, who've all bought into the parameters of what the system is. So I think most of you now, I think, probably have a general understanding of what the SUN system is. A lot of people, when they think of it, they think of, the SUN schools. That's what SUN is, and that's great that there's that identification. But it's really much broader than that. It's a system of care that includes not only the SUN community schools, but additional support services provided by many different partners. So there's anti-poverty services, early childhood, youth case management, alcohol and drug substance abuse prevention kinds of programs. With me today from the council, we brought a large contingent. So when we're done, the room will be, you'll have more space in the room. So
did you want to introduce the members?
Yes, I'm going to introduce those. So Lorenzo Poe is here. He's the senior policy advisor to Chair Ted Wheeler, and Joanne Fuller from the county's community Department of Human Services, and Barbara Keneally with David Douglas School District, and Krista Larson, who is with Metropolitan Family Services, and we have some other with Jerry Burns with Oregon Department of Human Services.
Can't forget Jerry.
Yes, and there's several, Peggy Samolinsky with staff, and Lori Kenny is also with staff, so we're well represented here today. So any questions about what the council is? You kind of get that part. So good, I'm done then. And I'm turning it over to Bill Scott.
Okay, what my role is just to talk a little bit about, I guess the specific thing we're asking you for today is we're here to support the staff recommendation that you adopt the allocation methodology that we adopted, and that our sponsor group, including Mayor Adams and Chair Wheeler, adopted in 2007, as we were looking at the knowledge that there would be grants expiring and changes going on, and we wanted to sort of, what are the priorities for which schools we try to make sure, or which programs we try to maintain, and at what level, and so on. And so that's what we're here to ask you for, and I think Lisa will speak to the specific recommendation later. The context for this is really going back more than 10 years into the origins of the Sun system. And then there was a task force that right when Chair Wheeler took office that he organized that ended up resulting in the council, is to kind of a vision for how we provide services to children and families throughout Multnomah County. And this is not a vision, this is a vision that's held by Multnomah County itself, but also by the other partners in the system. I'm on the council representing the Leaders Roundtable and informally the Portland Business Alliance. The vision is really for a universal system that would be available, would have the services that are needed available to every child in Multnomah County. And one of the applications of that has kind of become our mantra on the school side is every school a Sun school. That is the really efficient and right way to deliver services would be to have a Sun school at every school in the county. We don't think that's a silly vision, and we're at the point now where we're really beginning the serious work of developing what would be the business model that would make it possible to do that. But it would certainly serve the children better and probably more efficiently if we can figure out how to skin the cat than the way that we're spending money throughout the county to support children and families today. And our vision is for a system it's really kind of an infrastructure that will attract resources and attract service providers to align themselves with the approach that the Sun system takes, which is really around how do we make it really easy for the child and the family to access services? How do we make sure that the same family doesn't have to themselves negotiate 11 different, people, and that those people are talking to each other, the people that are providing services to that family, and that it's available in an accessible way, whether that means at the neighborhood school or through organizations from communities of color that family identifies with, and so on. So the vision is really for a universal system that is available everywhere to every family in Multnomah County, and that while it is designed to be an anti-poverty system, it's really designed to serve children who have needs regardless of their financial status, obviously with some priorities and for where public money is spent. We're also understanding that we need to attract a variety of funders who have a variety of their own priorities about what they're doing. So we're trying to design a system that won't compromise anybody's need to set their priorities about what they want to fund and how they want to fund it. So that's what we've tried to do with the allocation methodology, is to do something that the different people who are funding, in this case, the community school programs, can align with and still maybe have their own priorities about where they want to be and so on. But we've asked, we're asking you, the investment fund, as currently a significant funder of Sun community school programs, to look at what we've done and to align yourselves as much as you can with that, so that people who are providing services to children and families and so on can know what to expect and aren't shopping among various places to get programs funded any more than is inevitable. I think that's really the gist of my message. What we're ultimately trying to do is make the system efficient and make it really accessible to all the children in Multnomah County. So what we're asking, we feel strongly that the system has been around long enough that it's proven it delivers the goods, and it delivers them efficiently. And I guess I'd say in our evolution, we really have two main change agenda items now. One is trying to think through the effort for how we really become a universal program. The second is how we change it from being a system which, as it's evolved, has been kind of run by Multnomah County. And I think we've moved a big step in the direction, because of the council, in it being a system that is governed and funded by multiple parties, and that everyone can buy into. So that's really where we're headed and what we're asking you to support. And Gloria is going to explain the allocation methodology a little more.
Thank you. I'm Gloria Wiggins, representing the Coalition of Communities of Color in the SUN Coordinating Council. And we are here to ask you to adopt the SUN service system allocation methodology for school-based services and make funding decisions based on it. The allocation methodology focuses on directing SUN community school funding to the highest poverty sites within the county, while also taking geographic spread into account, allowing for service access across the county and the city. You have that table, different handouts, and one that has the list of the schools and the poverty and ranks. So here is how the allocation means to the SUN sponsors related to funding. If you look at the last column, they have the quartile with the rank of poverty. So schools with poverty ranks of 1 or 2 are given priority support from the partners and for grant applications. Those are the ones with highest poverty. And if schools with 3 or 4 that are back in the last page 3 and page 4 are chosen for SUN community funding, that funding should be consistent with the allocation methodology, which means that they will receive 75% of the funding. So schools with high poverty will receive 100%. Schools with less poverty level will be at 75% of the funding.
That's for schools in the 75% is for schools in the third and fourth quartiles. Mm-hmm. And that's the far right-hand column that we're looking at.
Yes, that's the right.
Just for clarification, the pretty roughly each page is one quartile. Just so if you're looking quickly.
It's important to note that chief funding areas overlap with other services provided by partners in the SUN service system. But these chief funded programs build on and leverage funds, resources within the SUN service system, which of course ensure the maximum effect of your investment. We have other providers coming to SUN schools, and they are successfully providing those services because they are at the SUN school. The outreach is already done. The students are engaged in the different programs, so they have access to things that are already happening at the schools. Many of these services are very important to the success of the students in the SUN service systems. Just to mention that in addition to the 4 SUN community schools currently funded by CHIEF, there are several providers that also come to the table and provide support to those SUN schools. Just to mention a few, Chess for Success, Ethos, Open Meadow, AKA Science. Those programs come to the table and provide those services at SUN schools. Also, early childhood home visits and child development services that are provided by agencies like IRCO, Impact Northwest, and NARA provide also services to the culture-specific populations that are provided by the Parent-Child Development Services program that is also part of the SUN service system. So these are several of the programs that are funded by CHIEF and that come to enhance the SUN service system and help it to be more efficient and effective. So finally, we are here to hope that you will make your funding decisions to support the system-wide effort, funding in alignment with the allocation methodology and our overall vision for the SUN service system. As Bill and Maxime explained, we want every school in Multnomah County to be a SUN school. That's the final vision that we all have. And if you have any questions about the system or the coordinating council, as Maxime explained, there are several of us here. You can contact any of us later. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of anybody?
Yeah, I have a question. This is fabulous work. It's great that you're trying to align a lot of the pieces of the good work that's out there being done, both in coordinating services and helping us figure out where to prioritize them, and providing a equitable platform for different groups coming in, getting a relatively similar amount of money. I'm assuming that the ones in the column means there's a current Sun school. And I know some of the blanks in the first and second quadrants, we have proposals in front of us. Are there, for the ones that we don't have proposals in front of us, are there schools still then in the first and second quadrants where there are no proposed services?
The first column that has one there, those are current Sun schools. And if you look at for example, Rosa Parks and Ron Russell are schools with high poverty, and they are not Sun schools currently. And it's the case for several that we can see in the first page.
So my question would be, I understand the 75% for third and fourth because of fee for service, and you're assuming that those communities can provide some of their own funding, and 100% funding for the first and second quadrant. So what is your thought about encouraging us to continue funding third and fourth quartile at 75% as opposed to trying to hit the schools, provide services in the first and second quadrant?
Well, I would say that you have to do the same kind of balancing that we've been doing, which is because we have a vision for universal service, we're reluctant to pull the rug out from any program, which is kind of why we went to the 75% and the county funding methodology for their schools did that reduction. And the Park Bureau has also done some realignment in terms of where they're funding schools. So I think that we aren't necessarily making a recommendation to you about whether you would eliminate funding for some of the schools, your existing funding, in order to fund applications from schools that aren't now being funded. I think we would support that decision if you make it, but we also wanted to make it clear that if your priorities would be to provide continuity for the programs that you're already funding, we would also support that decision. So we're not helping you as much as you'd like us.
We're not giving you all the answers.
I would say overall,
Giving us the easy recommendation.
overall, our priority is to make sure we're. I guess I'd say our number one priority is to make sure we don't lose service at the highest poverty schools. That has been the big danger because there are grants expiring that are not renewable grants. So I think that has been our biggest priority, is making sure those programs continue. We would also like to begin programs in the high poverty schools that don't have them, but we'd also like to keep programs at the less high poverty schools because they have lots of children in poverty too. It's just not as big a concentration. So we're not helping you on that decision. But I think we're encouraged. What we are encouraging you to do is not fund at the 100% level in those lower schools if you decide to fund them.
I have a kind of a follow-up question. Who initiates the proposals? Is it the school itself, and is that why they're not represented at this point in time as far as having a Sun school?
Yeah.
And is there any type of
it's somebody it's not the Sun Coordinating Council. It's the application would be generated. It would need to have the cooperation of the school. It might be a community-based group or whatever doing it.
Is that correct?
There's different funding sources for Sun traditionally. So there's been 21st century funds that come through the state. There's been the county funding. There's been funding through the Parks Bureau, and there's been funding through us. Those are the major funders. And so there's basically proposals are made to those funders, and those proposals usually come from a group that includes the school and a service provider and potentially other partners as well. So that's, they're initiated from the community up rather than typically from the community, from the
Funders down.
the funders down. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we certainly know is that if there isn't that grassroots leadership in the community, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the reason for that system.
And you had mentioned the parks already adopting this new formula. The county and the city and other funders also adopted it?
Yes, I would say the primary funders at this point are Multnomah County and the Park Bureau. They are both using this methodology. Obviously, 21st Century grants, we haven't got any control over, and so you're the fourth major funder. We're asking you to adopt the methodology. Not that we have control over you, but we're hoping we have a little influence.
One question. Sure. The question I had, I guess I didn't quite understand when you talked about some of your partners, such as Chess for Success. Mm-hmm. Are you asking them to do this also? So, for instance, if Chess for Success was to have a program in a fourth percentile, are you asking them to come to us with only a 75%?
I think that what we mentioned is that because you have the other enrichment programs that are funded by Chief, how they are connected to SUN, and that they deliver the services in a more efficient way because there is the platform that SUN provides. So we just mentioned that as to make the point that some other services are also that you are funding are also integrated into the SUN service system. I really don't think that.
Let me make a point here. We kind of have what we consider a core that really allows you to call a program a SUN community school. That includes a certain cluster of services, and it includes staffing at that school that then makes it possible for programs like Chess for Success to come in and take advantage of that core programming. We haven't reached the question you're asking, Ron, about whether we would suggest providers of those services that aren't part of that core would follow that kind of a methodology.
Any further questions? Well, thanks, Bill and Maxine and Gloria. Did other members of the coordinating council have any comments they wish to provide? Okay. Well, thank you. And I know we're going to...
For the time?
Sure. I know Lisa Pellegrino is going to present a recommendation, and then we'll ask if anybody wants to comment on that before we take a vote on the recommendation.
Okay, it seems like we're at a point where everybody more or less understands what we're recommending. I just wanted to make sure that I'm going to just take you through the end game of that. When we get to the point where we have to apply these recommendations, what would that look like or mean? And so just so we're clear. I think the key thing is that it could affect, if you all adopted these recommendations, it could affect the funding level that is given to a particular site. So we've been discussing different, 100%, 75%. That's based on what the county is currently allocating for its sites, which is about $100,000 a site for the next fiscal year. So there's in the range of applications that we've received for Sun School funding in this round, which you'll be considering in a month and a half or so. There's funding that's requested that's right at that level, and then there's funding that's requested that's higher than that level, sometimes to serve more children, sometimes to do something different, sometimes for enhancements. So there'll be different things you'll have to consider, and whether you want to keep the funding more or less at that 100,000 level, which is the county allocation, or whether you want to go above that for some reason. So adopting the methodology is going to influence potentially what you're targeting for funding for these sites. Okay, that's the first, kind of major.
And the 100,000 is the 100%?
That's 100%. Yes, exactly. So 75% of that for instance, we are currently funding some Sun schools in schools that are in the fourth quartile of that poverty index. So on that back page, the least poor schools, the recommendation for that would be that we would fund them at a 75% level. So, and frankly, I think if I recall correctly, that's actually what's been requested in the application. So you wouldn't necessarily be varying from what was requested in that case, because these folks are all well aware of this process and what's gone on. So it's not like it's a secret or anything. So it's not the case that you would necessarily have to change the funding level requested, but it's possible that you might. So that's one potential effect of this as you consider what you're going to fund.
The other major issue is potentially affecting what sites that you want to fund. People, as Adrian pointed out, people are coming forward to us and asking for funding, and they might group the funding of sites in sets of applications. So one application might ask for funding at 3 different sites. Another application might ask for funding at 7 sites. You may want to potentially, in applying these guidelines, fund some of the sites in one of the applications, and you may want to prioritize some of the other sites. And for instance, we did talk a little bit about one of the goals of the allocation methodology recommendations is to to minimize site changes in high poverty schools. So for instance, there's schools that have been up and running with SUN programs for the past 5 years using 21st century funds. Those funds are now going to be over at the end of this fiscal year, and they don't have the opportunity to renew them. There are, as somebody, Alyssa, pointed out, there are schools that are in the top of that in the top level of poverty that don't have SUN schools. Some of those applications have requested that we fund them. Now, you may have the choice of, well, do we continue funding at a high poverty site, or do we fund a new site at a high poverty site? What's our choice? And I think the allocation recommendations would recommend that we not terminate funding. First, that we consider not to terminate funding at sites that are already up and running because they've invested a lot of money up front in getting something going, which I can tell you from monitoring grants now for 5 years that that's a big investment and that's something you may not want to waste. So that's partly where that recommendation comes from, the rationale for that. So it could affect the sites that you choose to fund in the overall set of applications that are asking for funding. So that's the other, I would say, major effect. And then the last one is that the allocation recommendations request that we review the most recent poverty information after 3 years have gone by from the initial funding. So that poverty index that you have, that's the 08-09 school year, so that the schools take their poverty data that's collected in October of 08, and then they funnel that to the state, and the county has put out this index, which is that weighted average that looks at both the percentage of children who are using the federal free and reduced lunch program as well as the number of children at a school, trying to balance those out, and creates that index. So it would ask that at renewal time, since our grants this time around are going to be going out for 3 years, if we subscribe to these recommendations, it would be asking us to look at the most recent poverty index in 3 years' time when we are looking at our renewal decisions to just decide is everything we're doing still makes sense given the current poverty data. So I'm not sure that, I would say that just in watching year to year, there's not often tremendous shifts. So I don't know that it would necessarily be advising us to change sites or anything like that, but still to take it into account and do a formal review of it. So that's the other major recommendation or major effect I would see in adopting this. And just for our staff recommendation, obviously we've been a part of the council and working with this, and we are supporting the recommendation. I do sit, like Alyssa, I know, in a lot of meetings about system alignment and about trying to get different partners who are all working with different funding sources in the same system to try to do the same thing. So we act more as one and less as a bunch of parts all doing our own thing. And so I think this is very much in the spirit of trying to do that, of trying to act like a system and less like a bunch of parts doing what we want. And I would very much, and the staff together very much supports these recommendations and hope that you adopt them.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Anybody in the audience wish to comment before we take a vote on this? Okay, so I guess we would need a motion to...
It can be discussion, if you all have
discussion
about it. I don't know if
right.
you want to discuss or have thoughts about it.
But your recommendation basically is to endorse or adopt the general system allocation principles.
Yeah, that's the recommendation. That's the proposal, I guess.
For purpose of discussion, I move that we approve that recommendation.
I second.
Discussion?
I would just briefly say that I really like the approach. I think it's pretty fair. I certainly like not only that it's just poverty-based, but also the geographical. And I don't want us to be tempted as a committee, because we really have worked on this for a long time. It does take a lot to get a SUN school going, and it isn't just as simple as if it's not quite at the poverty level that maybe we think it should be. It doesn't mean it doesn't serve a lot of kids in poverty. And also it's a recruitment tool for that school, and I think lots of parents have made the decision that are borderline poverty or at the poverty level to move into that area because it does offer a chance to be in another geographical area, and the services in that SUN school may be one of the main reasons they move to that area. So I hope we take that into consideration as we go through the allocation process and not be tempted to cut SUN schools that are already there because they may not be in the first or second.
I just want to say that I appreciate the work of the Sun Coordinating Council. It's taken a long time to sort of sort through all the issues and to come up with some recommendations or principles for all the jurisdictions who have a hand in the funding of Sun schools to follow. And I think this is a good, fair approach, and I'm pleased to support it. Okay, well, if no other discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. So thank you very much, Sun Coordinating Council.
Can I say one other thing to the Sun Coordinating Council? I know that there's some discussion with the staff about this issue, but just for the public record, in the interest of system alignment, I want to make sure that you all in your leadership capacity of looking at coordinating systems is looking at the issue of after-school hours. I know that in some cases, Portland Public School District at least, I'm not sure about David Douglas, has limited capacity to fit both Sun programs and after-school, and in some cases has told the after-school programs to leave. And that's a real issue for families who used to have before and after school care and may lose those services. So I know that some of you are aware of this. I see a lot of heads nodding, and I know there's a lot of good examples of Sun programs coordinating well with the child care before and after school programs. And I hope we keep looking at that both system-wide and on a school-by-school basis. So thank you.
Okay. Thanks. So next up, we're going to have a communications update, and Mary Gay Broderick is here to present the update.
Morning, everyone. I got bumped off the last meeting, so I'm here today. Squeeze me in. I just wanted to give a brief communications update. As you know, our annual report is out. You have a copy on your desk there. So we were a little late this year just because of the election, but we made several thousand copies. And our theme this year was building skills, building hope, building confidence, building trust. That was kind of the theme that we used throughout the report. And right now, the report, of course, is on our website. We're distributing it all over the city. We have about 100 sites around the city that we'll be dropping those off. Various public buildings, city and county sites, and places where families congregate. We also sent it out to about 150 people on our distribution list, and we'll be taking it to all of various events. For instance, this Saturday I'll be at the county-sponsored Roots and Wings event at the Lloyd Center. It's a child abuse prevention conference there. They get about 5,000 or 6,000 people that come through that, so that's a big thing. So, and I'll be distributing it throughout the summer. Later this summer, when we pick the new grantees, we have a new database that we're working with, and I'll be doing targeted newsletters to various constituencies on our database. So that's going to be coming this summer. We're going to do a little facelift to our website. Our website's about 3 years old. So we'll be working with a designer. We're just going to be spiffing that up a little bit and doing some fun things with that. And later this spring, I'll be taking ads out now at about a dozen newspapers. So we do a mailer every other year to all the city households. On our off year, we take ads out in all the newspapers, highlighting the key events and key findings from the previous year that are really contained in the annual report. So we'll be doing that probably next month. And I'll just be doing continued outreach again at all kind of events throughout the city and taking my little show on the road and Dog and Pontiac. So that's it. Thank you.
Questions from Mary Gay?
It's a beautiful report.
Yeah, it's a great report.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Dan, Meg is going to go next because we're waiting for Nate, who had another meeting, and he's supposed to be here by 10.
Okay.
So hopefully we may have to just chat for a few moments while we wait for him to arrive.
Okay, so
Our agenda.
so Meg is going to basically update us on the funding proposals and where they stand and where the review stands.
Yes.
And I think you all have a list of all the proposals.
Hope so. Great. For the benefit of the public and as a reminder to you all, I just want to go through kind of where we are in the funding process and the timeline too. So far we have received a total of 126 applications, and they are requesting a combined total of $96 million over 3 years. That's about $2.60 requested for every dollar we have available. Just a snapshot in each area, there are 36 applications in after school, 20 in mentoring, 26 in child abuse prevention intervention, 16 in foster care, and 28 in early childhood. The applications so far are in the reviewers' hands, as well as yours. We have recruited over 100 reviewers to help us with this process. They will be reading and scoring each application independently on their own, using a rubric that outlines the evaluation criteria that was put forth in the RFI. Each of those reviewers is scheduled, is part of a panel of 3 members that will be scheduled to meet together and review the applications that they were all assigned. All of those review meetings have been scheduled. They take place starting today through May 8th. So no small task to coordinate the schedules of 100 people, but we managed to do it. Staff will be facilitating each of those review meetings and will be taking an active role in the discussions, helping assure that reviewers are able to justify the scores that they are giving to applications. Reviewers will also have an opportunity to change their scores on an application if they feel it is warranted. The average of the final scores of each panel will be the score given to that application. For each program area, in addition to scores, staff, well, let me back up. Staff is preparing for you all 2 separate documents to help in your review process. So one of those documents is a narrative summary of each application. It will include things like the service activities, the number of children served, the amount of money requested. If the applicant is a past grantee, it will have sort of a current funding status analysis on the part of staff over their current grant with us versus what they're proposing to do. The summary will also include any issues with the applicant's audit or whether or not the applicant's request exceeded their 30% of organizational revenues. So there's that one narrative document that you'll be getting from us. In addition, you'll be getting a spreadsheet that contains the score that the application received, as well as just pertinent data about the application, like the amount of money they requested in total and annually, number of children to be served, and other variables that we think will help with your decision making. You will receive your first sort of summary, narrative summary document and spreadsheet of data for your after school and mentoring decision making. During the first week of May, you'll get those materials. You'll have almost 3 weeks to review them prior to your May 18th decision making meeting for after school and mentoring funding. We are asking that you all
include the after school enrichment applicants as well?
Yes, it'll be full service and the enrichment applicants and the mentoring applicants, so all 3. We are asking that you all provide to us your slate of preferred applications and your rationale on those preferences by the morning of Friday, May 15th. So it'll give us a couple days to kind of look at those things and analyze them and have it ready for you all during your meeting on Tuesday the 18th. In a similar process, your summary documents for child abuse, prevention, intervention, and foster care will be provided to you during the second week of May, and you'll have a little more than 4 weeks to review those materials prior to your June 1st decision-making meeting in that program area. So we'll be asking that you return your slates for child abuse, prevention, intervention, and foster care by the morning of Thursday, May 28th. And we'll send you a reminder of these dates. But you'll also get your early childhood summary documents during the second week of May, and you'll have almost 5 weeks to review those. And we'll be asking that you get your slates back to us for that area on Friday, June 5th, for your June 8th decision-making meeting. And that is all I have on that. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I know this time around you made it mandatory for people to attend meetings because you thought that was the discussion that happened there was really important. If someone ends up not being able to come, is their score going to be averaged in with their group?
I suspect we'll try to get them to attend some kind of meeting at some point. I mean, we have been very clear about the mandatoriness of the meetings from the get-go, and we have so far rescheduled panels when somebody has notified us that they can't be there. So if somebody just plain no-shows, I think we're going to have to figure it out when we get there, but I suspect that it will at least get a phone call from staff to discuss with them their scores so that at least staff has talked to that person and heard their rationale, and yes, their score will be averaged
Tell them
in.
what happened in the discussion.
Right. Provide for them any other information they might want to take into account, give them the chance to change their scores. But we do have to get from them their signed conflict of interest statement and all their score sheets and their applications. So at some point there has to be some face-to-face contact with that person. Other questions?
The foster care applicants, or
Yes.
which we're going to do after school and mentoring first.
After school and mentoring first, that decision-making meeting is May 18th. Foster care is with child abuse prevention intervention, or they take place on the same day, I shouldn't say they're with. June 1st is that decision-making meeting.
And then early childhood is the
Is
last.
the June
round,
8th, yeah,
last
exactly. No small task.
Do you happen to know last time? You said we had about $2.60
Cents per.
requested for every dollar we have available. Do you happen to recall what
I
it was?
don't know if we have last time a dollar for dollar figure in the same way. It was about 3 to 1, I
3
think,
to 1.
last time. Yeah, so we're not too far off. And within those program areas, some of them are much higher than others.
Right. I was just going to say, just to balance that out, because it's not even. That was the average. We took the average for that. But just so you know, after school full service programs have over 4 times requested for their dollar amount that we put in that pot. The enrichment programs and the mentoring programs have more like the 2.5 times. So that will be probably an issue you'll need to consider at the front end of that meeting is, if we've received such a significantly higher level requested, perhaps it's worth thinking about transferring some of the funds from that we allocated to that area, to other areas into that from the after school mentoring. So we'll probably attack that at the first part of the meeting. It may just be done informing. As Alyssa had said, she wanted to do child abuse first because there is crossover between some of the child abuse requests and early childhood. In case there might be not a full complement of programs that she wants to fund in child abuse, maybe some of those funds could be used for early childhood if there's other things that people want to fund. So there's some things to take into consideration. I would say that it is pretty constant at about 2.5 to 3 for most of the areas, but with the exception of the after school full service, which is considerably higher.
I would just say we ran in this a lot over the last 5 years. It's just that the full service is so costly per student compared to the enrichment programs, and so generally you're touching less kids, maybe having more of an impact on less kids. But I'm not certain that means that we need to shift the resources away from mentoring because it costs so much to do full service.
Well, it's also the breadth. I think it's not just the per child expense. You're right. The per child expense typically is higher because you're providing more service. But there's a lot of program expansion that was proposed. So in other words, the greater amount of resources that were proposed there are not only due to the fact that it's a higher level of service and therefore more costly. It's also due to the breadth of expansion that people have requested. So wanting to serve more kids, more sun sites, for instance, things like that. So it's driven by 2 different things, I guess is what I think from my sort of, I haven't made it all the way through the applications yet, but I've gotten a good way through now. So I can see that it's both. A lot of current grantees are not asking to do the exact same thing that we are funding them to do now. They're asking to do more. So that changes everything. It changes the equation. So it's both. So I'm not necessarily recommending that we do it. I'm just saying that be aware that we did get significantly higher requests in one area as compared to others, and you may or may not want to adjust for that. Based on your look, I would suggest that you look at the summaries, the materials we're providing you first before you begin to head there, because it'll give you an easier way to understand what all is being proposed, rather than reading each application. Which, since I'm doing it myself, I can tell you is very time consuming.
But the ratios seem about like at home, don't you think? For each dollar that you have.
Yes.
Yes. Exactly what we finish at our budget discussions.
Any other questions? Great.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you, and good work in organizing all those people and reviewers. So I'm sure it's daunting.
Nate has arrived.
Okay,
so
Nate has arrived.
Yeah.
Our next speaker, Nate Washul from the Portland Schools Foundation, who will update us on the Connected by 25 and 9th grade counts programs. The foundation has also asked us for a support letter as it seeks grants for those initiatives. So welcome, Nate.
Great. Thanks for having me here. I'm Nate Washul, Community Engagement Director with the Portland Schools Foundation. and bring greetings also from Dan Ryan, our CEO at the Portland Schools Foundation. As Commissioner Saltzman said, my purpose for being here really is to provide you all with an update of what we're doing and also to solicit a letter of support by the chair on behalf of the committee for the ongoing work that we're doing and the ongoing resource development that we hope to do for this effort as well. I believe you all have a one-page document in front of you that provides a sort of brief overview of the project, and if not, I do have some copies. Okay, great. So essentially, Connected by 25 was a project that worked to identify the academic indicators that would tell us which students were most likely to eventually disconnect from high school. And it also was launched by a coalition of dozens of community groups, public entities, and school districts saying together we own this problem and together we're going to work towards solutions. Ninth Grade Counts is the first service-focused initiative to be launched from the Connected by 25 work. Ninth Grade Counts ran on a pilot basis last year, and we're significantly ramping it up this year. What Ninth Grade Counts aims to do is, based on the research that we found through Connected by 25, we saw even to a greater degree the importance of the transition into high school, and specifically the importance of that transition for students who have academic indicators like benchmark failure that show that they're at significantly higher risk of disconnecting, 3 to 4 times more likely to disconnect from school. And what we're able to do at the foundation and what we're really focusing on at this point is continuing the focus on the importance of this time, that key transition from 8th grade into 9th grade, in part this year through distributing $500,000 worth of leveraged resources that we've been able to pull together to deploy out to programs that are supporting students during the transition, specifically with academic support during the summer leading into high school. The most significant of those resources that we're currently deploying to programs is a lot of 40 full-time summer staff members for a period of 10 weeks that we've been able to leverage through a federal stimulus-related resource and a partnership that we have with Oregon Campus Compact. These are undergraduate and graduate students from Oregon colleges and universities that we're able to deploy out to programs, including approximately 15 current and prospective CHIF grantees that are providing direct support to 8th graders at risk of disconnecting to help them start high school on the right track. And also a host of other resources, including some resources through the Youth Corps, which is a project of the chair and the mayor's education initiative on which Commissioner Saltzman sits. So that's kind of a snapshot of what we're up to at this point. A second piece that we're taking the lead on is a conversation amongst school districts about how do we identify these kids? We have the research. Now what are we going to do internally with our data practices? And can we do that in a coordinated way across school districts, given the high mobility of students across school districts within Multnomah County? So that's a conversation that we're leading with the administration at the 6 large county school districts at this point. So with that said, I'd be glad to take any questions, and I really do appreciate the time and the attention and potentially the letter of support from the committee.
Questions?
Well, it's great work. I'm just curious about where the letter of support would be used. It's just a general letter of support as
Correct.
You seek funding from corporate sources, foundations,
Keep going.
federal, everywhere?
Yeah, it's going to be a general letter of support. The project, Ninth Grade Council, was specifically endorsed also recently by the Education Cabinet, and what we're working on is just securing sustainable ongoing funding to maintain the focus on the importance of this transition for these students. And so yes, corporate, foundation, private, public funds, they're all welcome.
So the manifestation of the ninth grade counts this summer will be
So
40 undergrad, college undergrad, and graduate students being deployed to various summer programs throughout
That's one of the resources. In addition to that, 40 Merrillhurst students who are halfway through their Masters of Education program will also be deployed in addition to those 40 AmeriCorps members, plus a large pot of resources in the form of transit passes, student incentives, and student visits to career sites and to colleges are being provided directly through the Youth Corps and the Mayor's office to these same ninth grade counts partners in order to help students start building a vision for what's waiting for them after high school by getting them on campus at colleges, by getting them out to trade sites, career sites, industry sites. So that's sort of the package of resources. I'd say that the full picture of what ninth grade counts is manifesting as this summer is going to be 1,000 students receiving significant summer transition support with an academic focus as they get ready to start high school. And our partners, including the CHIF partners, have already reported to us on a per program basis how many students with these indicators of being at high risk of dropping out they intend to serve this summer. And from the reports that we have from programs, we will exceed the goal of reaching 1,000 students this summer.
And then you mentioned the Summer Job Corps or Youth Corps too. Where does that stand?
Yeah, so the Youth Corps, the mayor's office.
Maybe I should be asking that question of myself and the mayor, but
sure.
Since you're up there,
well, I'll
give us your perspective.
I'll defer that to the mayor's office. But what I'll say is this: the Youth Corps is a 4-year strategy to provide career exposure and academic support to the students at highest risk of disconnecting, and that's the students identified through the Connected by 25 research. At the 8th to 9th grade level, the Youth Corps looks like that package of site visits, transit passes, student incentives to get the students involved with these really good quality programs that are taking place in the community. At higher levels of age, the Youth Corps this summer is tapping into federal resources through the Work Systems, Inc. to provide full employment for students at higher ages. So that's as much as I'll say, and I'll defer the rest to that.
Work Systems, Inc.
is a major partner in the Youth Corps effort led by the chair and the mayor's office. Okay. Absolutely.
And is your foundation involved at all in providing any of these direct services? Do any of the funds flow through you, or you're more on the policy, strategy development?
Yeah, more on the latter piece, and coalition building and convening is a major focus for the foundation. Luckily, through a partnership that we have, we were able to sort of snag that AmeriCorps resource that had been allocated federally for use in this region without a specific focus. And through a partnership that we had at the foundation with Oregon Campus Compact, we were able to say, hey, these are the students that this community is really interested in focusing on and supporting this summer.
Well, thank you, Nate. We applaud the foundation's efforts. Wish you great success with both of these worthy projects. And
very much.
And I guess we are at the close of our agenda. I want to thank everyone who.
Wait. What about the letter of support? Because I'll be the one having to take care of that.
Okay.
Are you all okay with that? Do you want to take a vote on that?
Sure,
I move we support it.
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So thank everyone for coming out this morning, especially all our guest speakers. Our next meeting is 1 p.m., Monday, May 18th, back here in the City Council chambers, where we'll be discussing and voting on after-school and mentoring programs. That meeting and the other 2 scheduled funding decision meetings in June are posted on the Children's Investment Fund website, and everyone will receive email reminders as well. So thank you all, and we stand adjourned.